I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from their claw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
It's time!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Coastal Cameron Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Are you ready?
Here's your host, the Big Fellah, Albert Cameron.
Let's get it on!
Well, Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for the Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, the Big Fellah, Albert Cameron, and today, the first day of the new year, we definitely want to wish you guys health, happiness, luck, joy, more of it than you could possibly expect for yourself. This is also the 1-year anniversary of the Prizefight Podcast, and thank you guys very much for making it so special for us. We definitely appreciate it. A lot has happened with Cage Nation TV in the last year. New programs, just a bunch of different stuff. Coming up on the Prizefight Podcast, we're going to be talking about Ronda Rousey and how I believe she can still make a comeback. Mirko CroCop Filipovic won the Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix, and I'm a little underwhelmed. I'm going to tell you why. Before we take our break, though, we definitely want to send out a big congratulations to Cody No Love Garbrandt winning the UFC Bantamweight Championship in a very impressive fight over Dominic, the Dominator Cruz. And if the guy couldn't be any more of a class act, he gives his UFC Championship to a cancer survivor. Now, that survivor has accompanied Cody to a lot of his fights, and Cody couldn't be a bigger proponent for supporting folks who are going through such a horrible disease. I mean, Cody is a really class act kind of guy. That's the kind of guy that I think is going to make a great champion because he does know how to sell fights. I mean, truth be told, the Northeast, a lot of them, I'm a Southerner now, but in the Northeast, a lot of folks tuned into UFC 207 because Garbrandt was fighting for the Bantamweight Championship and not because Ronda Rousey was making her comeback. So congratulations, No Love, and I don't want to get involved in the political business of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I mean, until I'm getting a paycheck from the UFC, my opinion on how the UFC operates on a day-to-day basis is irrelevant. When that day-to-day operation has a global implication or directly impacts my direct enjoyment of the UFC, then maybe. But what it comes down to is, I have no idea what the agreement between Mike Goldberg and the UFC was. He didn't get a send-off that a lot of people thought he deserved, but maybe it was in his severance package that he gets more money if they don't talk about it. That's always a possibility. Regardless, UFC 207 was Mike Goldberg's last fight last night, and I would like to say, Mike, thank you very much for all of your years being the voice of the sport I love. When I think back to my favorite commentary team in the UFC, I don't think Goldberg and Rogan. I think Joe Rogan's great, but I don't think Goldberg and Rogan when I think of my favorite UFC commentating team. I think of Goldberg and Blatnick, and I was pretty upset the day that Jeff Blatnick died when I heard about that. Regardless, Mike, thank you very much. May the new year also bring you more success and joy than you are prepared to handle, my friend. We're going to get into Ronda Rousey and how I think she can still make a comeback, but before we do that, let's talk to some sponsors. It's the Prizefight Podcast. Cage Nation TV is looking for bloggers and news contributors to help expand our reach into new markets. We're looking for writers to cover boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, traditional martial arts, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and mixed martial arts. If you're interested in this completely volunteer, unpaid opportunity, visit www.cagenationtv.com/opportunities or email a writing sample to cagenationtv@gmail.com. We're looking for folks with genuine enthusiasm for the combat sports who enjoy sharing their opinion. Welcome back to the Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Albert Cameron, and today we are celebrating New Year's Day, 2017. 2016's over. A lot of people are glad 2017's here, so let's make it the best one possible. Now, the UFC got an early jump on 2017 mayhem with UFC 207. It is no news to anyone at this point that Ronda Rousey was unsuccessful in her comeback. 48 seconds, a knockout loss to Amanda Nunes. Ronda Rousey and her mother both made statements. Of course, her mother has been very vocal in Ronda's career, extremely critical of Ronda's striking coach. Ronda said that she needed to take some time to reflect, a little bit of time to look back, but she did appreciate the love and support. If that came from anyone else in any other sport, I would immediately think, hey, retirement. The fight did not go the way that Ronda Rousey wanted it to go. It didn't go the way that her camp wanted it to go. A lot of people are saying, though, oh, I saw it coming. I saw it coming. As much as I would like to take the moral high ground on this one, I did not expect a Rousey win. Leading up to Ronda Rousey's fight with Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey was untouchable. She was bulletproof, she was Teflon, probably could have even cheated on her taxes, and the IRS couldn't touch her. When Holly Holm knocked Ronda Rousey out, it became evident to everyone, especially Ronda, that Ronda Rousey is indeed mortal and breakable. Now, she made a bunch of comments saying, hey, you know what, after that loss to Holly Holm, I thought about killing myself. That's a pretty bold statement to make, especially everything that has gone on in Ronda Rousey's life with her father killing himself. He had a terrible disease, and he felt that it would have been easier on everyone if he ended his life on his own terms. Again, I have no insight into that family. I have no idea what kind of terrible grieving period they were all in. But for Ronda Rousey to lose and still make that kind of statement, that gives you a really good idea of what headspace she was in. Leading up to UFC 207, Ronda put herself into self-imposed media exile blackout. Rarely did interviews. I think she did one with ESPN, and it was a very good article. She bolted right after the weigh-ins, and, it was a demonstration that she is so in her own right mind. She is so all about being focused on victory that she's not even going to take the time to talk to people about interviews, how training's going. Conor McGregor tried doing the same thing, and I've MF'd him up and down, but the difference was Ronda Rousey didn't throw her hissy fit on Twitter. That was Conor's cross to bear. Regardless, so Mom still doesn't like the coach, and I agree. I don't think anybody on planet Earth right now likes Ronda Rousey's striking coach. I'm not an athlete, not a competitor, so I can't say what their game plan was. I can't imagine it was getting punched in the face, but Mike Tyson himself said everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. What we need to not do is we need to not take anything away from Amanda Nunes. She, right now, is the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. She has defeated decisively 2 women that were top of the division 12 months ago. Let's say 13 months ago, 14. Back in November, if we had to identify number 1 and number 2 in the UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship division, we would say, okay, Ronda's number 1 because she's a champ. Miesha Tate's number 2. And Rob Lynn himself has said, there's such a disparaging gap between the 1 and 2 and then the rest of the pack. 14 months ago, we were saying this. Amanda Nunes has beat them both. Okay. Decisively. The woman is a competitor. The woman is an athlete, and right now, most importantly, she's champion. She has cleared out everyone who was a big name in UFC Women's Bantamweight division not even a year ago. She has cleared them out. She has beat them. Right now, she is top dog in my opinion. That woman has done everything she has needed to do to make a name for herself to be clearly defined as champion. We cannot take that away from her. Ronda could have been doing crack in the back parking lot of the event center, snoring coke or whatever. She could have been drinking beer, slapping around little kids, and regardless of what her excuse may be, Amanda Nunes is champion. Now, of course, I am not saying that Ronda was doing any of that. I'm just saying she could have been, and that still does not excuse the fact that Amanda Nunes is a decisive champion, undisputed. Regardless of what's going on in Ronda's life, Amanda Nunes is the champion, and she needs to be celebrated as such. I said the same thing about Holly Holm, same thing about Miesha Tate. They were champions. They won the titles clearly and decisively. I made a comment on Facebook that I really thought Ronda Rousey would be best advised to do a little training with Iron Mike Tyson. Well, for her hands, of course. Mike Tyson could teach Ronda Rousey the kind of boxing that her striking coach clearly cannot. And it's not just so easy as, put your hands up, keep your chin down. Tim Sylvia learned the hard way that MMA gloves are 4 ounce. You can't put them up like you can a boxing glove and expect punches not to get through. But what Mike Tyson could teach Ronda Rousey is foot movement, head movement. Mike Tyson's head movement in his heyday that he learned from Customato was legendary. No one could get a hold of Mike until Buster Douglas did. Mike Tyson's head movement and his foot movement was legendary. That's the kind of stuff that Ronda Rousey needs to be learning. If she can't learn it from Mike, she might want to learn it from Cody No Love Garbrandt. There was an exchange that Dominic Cruz could not touch him. Garbrandt celebrated by popping and locking. Maybe that's part of the training regimen. Who knows? If Ronda Rousey had the opportunity to train with Mike Tyson, of course, head movement, hand speed, fundamental boxing. Because Ronda that is an opportunity for Ronda to improve. But to sit down and talk with Mike Tyson might also be very good for her on an emotional level. If Ronda is thinking about ending her life after a loss, then she needs to talk to someone who can tell Ronda what it's like to be on top, to be immortal, to be bulletproof, to be Teflon, and then to have that all taken away. And I think Mike Tyson is going to be able to teach her how to cope with that. Now, of course, I'm talking as if, they're in talks. They're not. I just think that if anyone's going to be able to talk to Ronda on a level that understands how she feels, I think it's going to be Iron Mike Tyson. I think Tyson would have the insight, both physically, both mentally, to get Ronda back to where she goes. Everyone's calling for Ronda Rousey to retire. And I'm not with them. I think that there is a comeback story inside that lady. I don't think you become an Olympic medalist, champion with as many defenses as she has, just to give it up after 2 losses. If the Cubs can be in the pennant race, Ronda Rousey can surely make a comeback from this. I think, though, she needs to address some of her mental duress, definitely work on her hands. But I truly, truly, truly believe Ronda Rousey could still make a comeback from this. I don't think she's done. I think there's too much potential, too much champion caliber potential to be wasted for Ronda Rousey to just give it up. Next on the Prizefight Podcast, we're going to talk about Mirko CroCop winning the Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix, and I'm underwhelmed. Before we get into that, we're going to hear some messages. Don't go nowhere. It's the Prizefight Podcast. Cage Nation TV would like to take a second and formally thank all of the businesses that have taken the time to sponsor a mixed martial artist or a boxer as they have trained to attain greatness. In the world of business, it can be looked at as an advertising expense to get your name out there. But did you know that your sponsorship dollars is actually keeping the American dream alive? Your help and support is actually changing the lives of aspiring athletes. Working hard and reaching for the brass ring is truly the great American story. We encourage all of our listeners and followers to support businesses that sponsor your favorite fighters. And thank you to those businesses for your continued support and encouragement. Welcome back to the Prizefight Podcast. I'm the host, the Big Fellah, Mr. Albert Cameron, and Happy New Year's. A very big New Year's tradition, in my world anyway, is the Japanese MMA New Year's Eve tradition. And while we didn't get it right on New Year's Eve, we still got a Grand Prix, and that is awesome. Mirko CroCop Filipovic, your Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix champion, stopped 2 fighters in one night, and I'm thinking to myself, so what? Now let me preface with this. I love Mirko CroCop. I am a very big fan of everything that Mirko CroCop has accomplished in mixed martial arts. The first time that Mirko CroCop came to the UFC, I grabbed Drew Shannon, my wife, and I'm like, hey, we're going to go to Champs in State College, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to watch the UFC debut of Mirko CroCop as he takes on Eddie Sanchez. And I'm watching the fight, CroCop's coming to the cage, and this is before the UFC purchased Pride Fighting Championships. So CroCop's coming to the cage, the Pride theme starts. I literally got goosebumps. Goosebumps, ladies and gentlemen, goosebumps. CroCop defeated Sanchez, which I think surprised absolutely no one. I don't think even Eddie Sanchez might have been surprised. Mirko CroCop did not have the greatest UFC run on the books. Again, I think he knows that. For me, the turning point for CroCop was when he lost to Gabriel Gonzaga. Gonzaga knocked him out with his own left high kick. CroCop fell back on his leg, damaged ankle and knee ligaments extremely bad. CroCop tried leaving, competed for the Inoki Bombaye. I think he even did like a K1 tournament. UFC brings him back and says, hey, let's do this. You still got something in you. CroCop failed to make a serious impression on the UFC heavyweight division, and then goes back to kickboxing for glory. I think he does the Inoki Bombaye again, and then the next thing you know, he's in the Rizin Grand Prix. I had extremely high hopes for both Mirko CroCop and Heath Herring, both of which competed in the Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix. I thought that Heath Herring and Mirko CroCop was going to come in and just clear out every single UFC heavyweight. That was the impression I had. I thought CroCop was going to come in, start left high kicking every heavyweight to stand in front of him, and before you knew it, we were going to have Mirko CroCop as UFC heavyweight champion. We were going to have Fedor Emelianenko as the Pride heavyweight champion. And then as fate would have it, they were going to come in and have the Super Bowl fight. It did not happen that way. Not even close. CroCop had some good wins. But he was unable to take control of the UFC heavyweight division as I had hoped. Heath Herring, unable to make a splash in the UFC heavyweight division. Heath Herring's pre-fight interview, before he fights, I think, Jake O'Brien for the first time in the UFC, he says, I was brought in here to save the UFC heavyweight division. Epic fail, my friend. Failed to do so. Now, I think Keith Haring, fantastic fighter. Again, when I'm saying anything about these fighters, I need to preface with, these guys have fought, I have not. Based on that principle alone, they have earned my respect. As soon as you lace up the gloves, step into the cage, you immediately earn a respect because you have done something that I cannot do. And you're doing that for my entertainment. Immediately, respect. Heath Haring gets my respect, okay? The fighter with the worst record on planet Earth gets my respect because they laced up the gloves and stepped into the cage. Let me not get that wrong. Anything I am saying does not indicate that these guys are not worthy of respect. They are. They are warriors, okay? Warriors. So, CroCop and Heath Haring, unable to do what I was hoping they were going to do in the UFC heavyweight division. CroCop gains a lot of interest in the Rizin Openweight Grand Prix because of the hubbub with the axe murderer, Wanderlei Silva. These two were supposed to get into the ring and kill each other. Wanderlei's talking smack, CroCop's talking smack, calling each other names, and this is the kind of fights you were hoping they were at the opposite ends of the bracket so that they could fight each other in the finals and just add that tension of drama. Just add that tension to it. Well, the axe murderer got hurt, and CroCop was none too kind about it. If you're going to talk that kind of smack, and then you get hurt, it does damage your reputation a little. I've seen Wanderlei Silva get hit in the groin so hard it probably could have dropped a rhino. And he still came back and finished the fight. So, no doubt, Silva has some cojones fortitude. But what it did is it pissed off CroCop. And it led to a lot of disappointment. I can't imagine anyone is more disappointed than Wanderlei Silva. Now, going into the semifinals, Wanderlei Silva's replacement was King Mo Lawal, last year's Grand Prix champion, representing Bellator. CroCop is able to defeat King Mo, and he advances to the, I guess it would be the semifinals and the finals. So he beat King Mo in the quarterfinals. On his way to winning the Openweight Grand Prix, Mirko CroCop stopped Baruto Hooverson and Amir Ali Kabari. Here's my problem with that. Mirko CroCop has a record of 32 wins, 12 losses, 2 draws. He's a veteran. Veteran if there ever was one. Mirko CroCop is a veteran. My whole problem with Rizin Fighting Federation is that they are putting so much emphasis on guys with a lot of legacy and guys with not so much legacy and hoping that magic happens. You gotta find that mid-ground. If you're gonna focus on guys who are unknown, it has to be all about the guys who are unknown. Build your own stars. If it's gonna be guys with a bunch of legacy, you might as well go with that. And I will talk in an upcoming Friday 5 about mistakes that MMA promotions can make. And one of them, the most fatal, is trying to outspend the UFC. You cannot outspend the UFC, which is the problem that Dream had. It's the problem that Pro Elite had. They're trying to outspend the UFC. So you got CroCop competing in your Grand Prix, which is going to add a lot of prestige to your event. Because if CroCop does anything well, outside of the left high kick, it's winning Grand Prix. He was the Pride Openweight Grand Prix champion. Competed in K1 Grand Prix. I think maybe even a Glory Kickboxing Grand Prix. CroCop wins Grand Prix, and obviously winning the Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix, that's what he does. The problem is, and I'm finally getting to the point. Sorry for my digression. The point is, Baruto Hooverson had 2 wins. Both of them in the Rizin Fighting Federation. Okay. You're taking a guy with 32 wins, 12 losses, 2 draws, and putting him up against a guy with 2 wins in your organization. Does anyone else feel that that's suspect at all? You'd like to think that the point of a Grand Prix is, he fought before, he had to beat someone to get into the Grand Prix, and the records I'm claiming do not include the Grand Prix action because they have not been tabulated yet. But before the Grand Prix, Baruto Hooverson had 2 wins. Both of them were in Rizin. And Rizin hold events like if they do it too much, they're gonna not have enough events to get into the weekend. 2 wins in a sparsely evented promotion against a man who has done a lot in the sport of mixed martial arts and kickboxing. And then in the finals, he stops Amir Ali Kabari, who has 3 wins, 2 of which were in the Rizin Fighting Federation. What has Mirko CroCop effectively proved? Looking at this tournament bracket, the most danger that CroCop was in to lose was against King Mo Lawal. Okay, I don't know whose cousin Baruto Hooverson is or Amir Ali Kabari, but I mean, clearly someone did them a favor by, hey, I'm someone's cousin, put him in this bracket. Mirko CroCop has proved that he has effectively beat no one in that tournament. This is the problem with Rizin Fighting Federation, not with CroCop. CroCop was given an opportunity to fight. He went out and did it. He wanted Wanderlei Silva. They gave him King Mo. King Mo has done some things. I mean, as far as light heavyweights go, he's not the worst light heavyweight that Mirko CroCop could fight. Mirko CroCop said, I want to fight. Rizin said, here's your guys. Here's the tournament bracket. To put a guy who's 32-12-2 up against debuting professionals, which is essentially what they are, that's irresponsible, okay? Mirko CroCop is the Rizin Fighting Federation Openweight Grand Prix champion, and he effectively beat no one. Had he beat King Mo in the finals, well, yeah, that would have meant something, okay? So having King Mo and CroCop on that side of the bracket means it was kind of lopsided, and he effectively beat no one. This is my problem with the Rizin Fighting Federation. I want so hard to support Rizin. I want to say, hey guys, I think you're doing things right. I think this is the opportunity to create the competition that the UFC needs, that the fans of MMA are going to benefit from, and they're letting me down. Okay, I don't know how a guy with 3 wins got into the finals of the Rizin tournament. I have no idea. But these are the things that just kind of rest on my jimmies about the Rizin Fighting Federation. Another part of that problem is there are so many people who visit internet forums who just believe that Rizin Fighting Federation is it. Oh man, Rizin's the comeback of Pride. Pride Fighting Championships is coming back reincarnated as the Rizin Fighting Federation, and all is right with the world again. Well, how can you say that? CroCop identified that he could not climb to the top of the UFC heavyweight division. And let's use a little logic here. The UFC attracts the best fighters in the world because it's the UFC. Doesn't necessarily mean that the best heavyweight in the world isn't out there and not fighting for the UFC. I'm seeing statistically, if a heavyweight is the best in the world, he's fighting for the UFC right now. So you got Mirko CroCop, who's not the best heavyweight in the world, but a damn good fighter. He has my respect. CroCop, not the best heavyweight in the world, fighting guys who probably aren't the best in their elementary schools. It makes me sad because I think CroCop deserves better fights than that. If we're going to make this about legacy, I think it would be in Rizin's best interest to try to get a hold of Fedor Emelianenko. Get a hold of Fedor. Let's make this happen. Let's get the rematch. That is, in my opinion, the only thing that Rizin can do to do any justice towards CroCop's legacy. Let's try to get the rematch with Fedor Emelianenko. Coming up next week on the Prizefight Podcast, well, I have no idea, but I'm going to look forward to talking to you guys anyway. Coming up on my schedule, just to let you guys know, Next Level Fight Club will be holding their event in Raleigh, North Carolina. Cage Nation TV South will be on site for that event. We're going to break down all you need to know about the Next Level Fight Club on upcoming episodes of the Prizefight Podcast and Cage Nation TV. And also, here in Wilmington, North Carolina, there is a festival called the Azalea Festival because apparently Wilmington has a lot of azaleas. I haven't lived here long enough to really tell, but Wilmington has the Azalea Festival that is timed right around the time the azaleas are going to bloom. Part of that festival is a 3-day boxing tournament that Cage Nation TV South will be covering for the entirety of the weekend. We're really looking forward to that. A lot of good stuff's coming up in combat sports, so keep it tuned right here to Cage Nation TV and the Prizefight Podcast. We're going to be covering all kinds of combat sports, so be looking forward to Cage Nation TV South, again, bringing you coverage of the Next Level Fight Club and the Azalea Festival boxing tournament. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Big Fella, Albert Cameron, and Fights Cameron. Action.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prizefight Podcast. All rights reserved. 2016 to 2017 Planet Aries Sports. The Prizefight Podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.